All right. Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Unnamed Bracketology podcast. My name is Kerry Miller, joined as always by my good friend Graham Dorn. We are firing it up live today, hopefully working out any kinks that we may have for the mock selection for the top 16 coming up on, is that Wednesday or Thursday? I keep saying Wednesday, but it's Thursday, correct,
Thursday
Graham?
night. I kind of intentionally chose the day after all the fun games end.
Yeah, well, we won't be missing anything on that day, that's for sure. There might literally not even be a top 50 team playing, let alone a top 16 team playing. But it is ACC Monday. I'm going to share the spreadsheet here. We're going back to Old Faithful here. Just kind of looking. I did throw in a specific wins above bubble column now, so we can look at that beyond just the resume metrics average. I don't think Duke is worth really talking about. They are two for me, two for you, two in net, two in WOB, two, 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 two. Big game coming up against Michigan on Saturday. That will determine who is one overall heading into the home stretch. I think we should probably talk about North Carolina a little bit. You wanted to talk about them like back on Saturday, but I said, well, let's see what happens against Pitt. And even without Caleb Wilson, without Henry Vasar, they destroyed the Panthers, not surprisingly. But what are you thinking with North Carolina in general? Sans Caleb Wilson, I think it's a very Zion Williamson situation. If he makes it back for the ACC tournament and they look all right, I think the committee is just going to forget anything that happens in these next, up to 6 games without him. But if he doesn't play, if he's not available for the dance and they don't look good, how far do you realistically think they could fall?
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm keeping them exactly where I think they would be if there was no injury because I want to see
Sure.
more what happens. Like, do I think they looked fine against Pitt? Yeah, I thought they looked fine, but it's tough to tell when you're hosting Pitt what that exactly means. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they perform over the next couple weeks. And I agree with you. I think there is a chance they could fall fairly far, but I think anything below an 8 seed seems kind of out of the picture to me,
Yeah.
just because they've built so much on the resume already. And to the point, like they actually do have a pretty star-studded roster in general. Like Caleb Wilson is obviously the guy getting the most attention, but it's not like they don't have a lot of experience. A lot of guys have been playing major minutes on prominent programs for a few years now. So I think with the North Carolina team we've seen, I think the committee will pay attention to what they see over the next few weeks. But I don't think they could drop lower than an 8, and frankly, I don't think they're going to drop that far.
Yeah. They do have a tough slate for sure. Like they could have slipped up quite a bit down the stretch, even with Caleb Wilson. So I don't know how much that plays into it. Like at least they didn't lose to Pitt. But I mean, even what the worst thing they could take here would be a home loss to Virginia Tech. And even that's like, wow, the Hokies were desperate to get that marquee win to play their way into the field. Oh, well, I don't think that would, I mean, it would be a quad two loss. It wouldn't be good for them, but yeah, I can't see them dropping below like a 7 or an 8 seed, and we both have them right in that 5-6 range right now. We should probably touch on Louisville a little bit too. I mean, we were talking before this, and we said we'd probably just fixate on the bubble teams, but Louisville's getting a little weird. The predictive metrics say they should be like a 3 seed. I think the resume metrics are certainly more in line with where we are seeding them at 22 overall, just because they don't have those great wins. But boy, those opportunities are coming at UNC, at Clemson, even at SMU or at Miami would be their best win of the season because their best win right now is a neutral game against Indiana. So I think if they get two of those four, maybe they climb up to like a 5 seed. But if they lose all four, they're going to get the Louisville treatment that you keep talking about, right, Graham?
Yeah, and I think there's actually a little bit of a caveat there too that makes me a little suspicious about Louisville, even if they do that. If they beat UNC, the committee could be like, yeah, but Caleb Wilson was out, so they didn't get the real UNC in Chapel Hill. And then if they get Clemson, all of a sudden we're like, maybe Clemson isn't a 7 seed. Maybe Clemson's like a 9 seed. Maybe that's who Clemson is. And then is that big of a win if we're talking about Clemson as maybe a 9 seed? So like in same thing with SMU and Miami, right? Like these are 8, 9, 10 seed caliber teams right now. I Even if Louisville beats those teams, it might do more to knock those teams down. So it's not that great of a win in the first place. So I just really don't see a path forward for Louisville to a great seed. I just don't. I don't see any wins in the stockpile at this point that really move the needle. And then if they pick up any ones from here on out, I don't think those teams are going to keep great seats. I think those teams are going to look worse to the committee at that point. So I think Louisville is probably looking at best as a 5 seed. Realistically, I don't think they're going to get up to that 4 seed or above. I especially don't think they have any path to a 2 seed or a 3 seed.
I could see a 3 if they won out, just because they already have the predicted. Obviously, if they were to win at UNC, at Clemson, at SMU, at Miami, their wins above bubble would kind of skyrocket. Even though none of them is individually a particularly fantastic win, that would be a very strong collection. I think they would all be quad one, so they would be 10-6 against quad one at that point. So that they'd be a tough omission from the top 12 at that point. But right now, we were just looking yesterday at the 3 seed line. Like, could they catch up to Texas Tech or Florida? Maybe not. But it puts them in the conversation. But I think
Well,
it's probably more likely they'll
I'll,
drop at least 2 out of the 4
I'll say this: if they win against any of those teams, which of those teams do you think is a top 6 seed at the end of the year?
of the
If
UNC,
if
Clemson, SMU. Yeah,
Louisville
probably none of
wins
them. Yeah.
none of them, I think it's a really tough sell because the teams they're competing with for 3 seeds, those are like the Nebraskas when they're going on the road to beat Illinois. It's the
Yeah.
Kansas who went on the road to beat Texas Tech. It's Texas Tech who went on the road to beat Arizona. Like those are really good 3 seeds you're competing with. And if Louisville's thing is, well, we have great efficiency, it's like, okay, well, you're competing against Florida now. So, like, I think it's a really tough sell for Louisville.
Let's scroll back up slightly because we got a question in the chat from Andrew Schaefer. He said he was having a discussion with you earlier on, well, he said X, I'm going to say Twitter. He has Virginia as a 5 because of the lack of quality wins. And I do think that is interesting. I think there is a case for Virginia to be seated a bit below its metrics. I mean, I have them a bit. I'm uncomfortable with where I have them at 13, to be honest, because that 4-0 quad 1A record looks great. But then you actually look at what they are, and it's like, boy, this is not all that special. At Louisville, at NC State, at SMU, at Texas. Now, you win on the road, you win consistently, you're going to get a pretty impressive seed. I'd have a hard time putting them as a 5, but I I think maybe where you have them at 15 overall is probably more fair. I think I just kind of bumped them up a little bit just because they haven't lost recently. They've kind of snuck up on me to 13 overall. Do you want to continue your X conversation with Andrew about Virginia?
Well, I mean, to that point, I think what did Virginia do, right? They won at Louisville, they won at NC State, they won at SMU. Very similar to what we're talking about Louisville potentially doing, which is like, yeah, those are great wins, but now you're still missing the truly awesome win against the team at the top of the bracket. So I actually find Virginia one of the hardest teams to seed in the entire bracket because I could
Hmm.
easily see the committee being like, what are you guys talking about? This is a 22-3 team who is 4-0 against quadrant 1A. Of course we made them a 3 seed. Why would you think that it's not worthy? And it's like when you put it that way, yeah, I think they should be a 3 seed. On the other hand, when you're like, yeah, I mean, they don't have a single win all season against the top 5 seed, and they did have an opportunity against UNC at home, and they lost at home when given the opportunity. I really think Virginia's a really tough to seed team because I could easily see the committee not just being like, hey, instead of a 4, they're a 3, or instead of a 4, they're a 5. They could be a 3, they could be a 5, they could be a 4. Like, you just don't see that towards the top of the bracket very much. You see that more when you're talking about like, are they a 9 or a 10 or an 8? That's where it gets a little confusing. But at the top of the bracket, usually don't have that wide of a seed variance.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about Virginia a lot on Thursday. Probably, possibly more so than any other team. I think they're going to be a tough one to seed in the top 16, but they should certainly be in the top 16. Let's go down here to these more bubbly teams who I think are a little more interesting. Even Clemson, Miami, and NC State, they're all solidly in for now. I think they would have to like all absolutely crap the bed down the stretch to blow it, but Clemson, another team that doesn't really have great wins. That neutral win over Georgia has not gotten it's gotten ugly as a best win in a hurry. I mean, at this point, maybe that home win over SMU is more impressive. I don't know. There's nothing great on their resume, and they have two losses to teams. One nowhere close to the field, and a home loss to a team that's not currently in our projected field. I don't. I think Clemson skated by for too long because they were like 10-1 in the ACC, and you just kept looking at them. It's like, man, I don't think they should be this high up here, but I can't justify having them lower than this. And I think that's where I'm at with them at 29. Like that's as far as I can drop them with what their resume is, but I can also see them playing their way down the seed list in a hurry because I don't think they are a top 29 type of team.
Yeah, I think they're a really interesting team because I feel like they're very similar to Louisville last year, which is yeah, when you look at the paper all seems to tell a pretty good story, but then you peel the onion back a little bit and you're like, ugh. You're telling me Georgia is your best win of the season? We've just been talking for days about how we don't really think Georgia's an NCAA tournament team. If Georgia's the best win you have on the season, not a true road win at Georgia, by the way, Georgia on a neutral court is your best road or is your best win of the season. I think there's really some pretty big warning signs that the committee might shock us with where Clemson ends up seated. And honestly, I don't think it's entirely unfair. If that's what they end up doing, they lost at home to NC State, they lost at home to Virginia Tech. BYU, we're looking at BYU as a loss to a really solid team. Let's see what happens with BYU from here on out. I don't think BYU is about to win many games the rest of the
Yeah.
season. And if that happens all of a sudden, maybe the committee's looking at that BYU loss as like, that's not a very good loss. So I think Clemson's going to make the field. I won't say they're a lock because I really don't believe they're a lock at this point. But I could easily see Clemson falling to like a 9 seed and not being surprised by that at all.
Yeah, I think the best thing going for them is like as long as they win the home games against Florida State and Georgia Tech, they should be fine. But if they were to like a loss at UNC, Caleb Wilson or a lot or not, the committee's not going to care about that. Home loss to Louisville, oh well, Louisville finally got a good one. There you go. But if they were to lose either of those two home games, things could get a little sketchy in a hurry. Miami, who we both have at 30, I think is probably I should probably just switch them and have Miami ahead of Clemson because I feel like Miami's more comfortably in. They have one fewer loss. Uh, they have better marquee wins at NC State versus North Carolina now. I think it was more so a situation of Miami was so close to the cut line before, and now it's like, well, how high can I actually elevate them? Like, can I really make a team climb four full seed lines in 7 days? But maybe I should have, especially with everybody else in this tier losing over the weekend. I think Miami probably should be ahead of Clemson because I have a hard time seeing them dropping out at this point.
Yeah, to your point, I think there's when I've been thinking about these teams more, and I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the week I have the order Miami, NC State, Clemson, because Miami went on the road, beat NC State, NC State went on the road, beat Clemson. Kind of makes sense when you compare what these teams have done against each other. Definitely an argument that Miami should be the highest seeded of these teams.
And then NC State, even though we both agreed over the weekend that, at 31, they're kind of that team they're that cut line where you feel like, yeah, they're definitely in. And then after that, it can get a little sketchy. They still could. I think the by far the biggest thing working in NC State's favor is that 12-7 record against quads 1 and 2. They have a lot of nice wins. They don't have a lot of great wins. They only have that one particularly bad loss to Georgia Tech. I mean, I think maybe they are the safest because they have those 12 wins. I mean, how many teams in the country have 12 wins against quads 1 and 2? Like eight, maybe 10. I don't know. I'm not looking at the spreadsheet right now in that regard, but could you see NC State possibly falling out?
I could see it. I think it would be incredibly rare that it happens. I mean, I think they're looking at like 98% chance of dancing. I would be absolutely shocked if they end up missing it at the end of the day, not just for the number of quad one and quad two wins they have overall, but NC State actually scheduled pretty tough out of conference. Give them some
Yeah.
credit for that. And what did they do? They went to Clemson, they went to SMU. Even if SMU falls out of the field, that's still a win over a bubble competitor that they picked up on a true road game. And if SMU stays in the field, now they've got 2 wins over tournament teams. You don't see two true road wins over tournament teams for really that many teams. It's a pretty rare group that has 2 true road wins over tournament teams. I think when you add all that up, between the number of Q1 and 2 wins that they've got, the true road wins over teams competing for the NCAA tournament, I think NC State is almost certain to dance.
Yeah, I think they would probably have to lose all 5 of these. Now, 3 of them they absolutely could lose: Duke, North Carolina at home, Virginia on the road. But they should beat Stanford at home. They should beat Notre Dame on the road. But if they were to lose all 5, now they're 18 and 13, and their best wins are against these other bubble teams. They are on the road, like you said, but only 2 wins over the projected field. What else did they get at home? I know Wake Forest, or where's NC State? Here they are. Uh, Ole Miss, Boise State on a neutral. That's nice. VCU at home. That's kind of nice. Yeah, they have a deep enough stockpile of nice wins. Like they're going to get in over a team like St. Mary's or Santa Clara. I think that's kind of their saving grace. It's hard to see them falling behind them with how many okay wins they have. SMU. Oh, my mouse is going crazy. But let's do that just so that we're not fixated on anybody else. SMU has gotten pretty bubbly in a hurry. We talked about them yesterday. 17 and 8 now, no particularly fantastic wins. That home win over North Carolina was, solid. North Carolina was whole at the time. Neutral win over Texas A&M back before the Aggies really had figured themselves out a little bit, although now they're falling by the wayside as well. So that might not even be a win over the field by the time all is said and done. I think that'll be the real key for them is what does Texas A&M do on top of what SMU does down the stretch. Let's say they go. I think we talked about this yesterday. If they go 2-4, losing the home games to Louisville and Miami, but winning those road games against Cal, Stanford, Florida State, I mean, they'd be on the bubble at best at 19 and 12.
Well, you said 2-4, right? I think 2-4 is out. 3-3, I think that's what puts them at directly 0 wob, right? So if they're at 0 wob, I think they're in real trouble. Because even if they pick up those road wins, I just don't think it's going to move the needle all that much for them. But 2-4, I think they're really in trouble. 3-3, I think they're in trouble. 4-2 is really what I think they have to get to. And that's not going to be an easy task. It's a pretty tough road for them to get there, especially. And I know we brought this up with BYU earlier and UNC a little bit. UNC might not be looking as great of a win as it really was. Like we know that was healthy UNC, but when the committee sees it, might not be the best win in the world.
I don't know what's going on with the spacing here. That got all messed up for Virginia Tech. But yeah, I forgot I had texted you earlier that if SMU goes 2-4, I think they would be 0.01 wins above bubble if they go 2-4 down the stretch. So that'd be kind of perfect. And even if they're exactly 1 win above bubble, I don't know this year. There are like 50 teams with wins above bubble. Now, granted, a lot of them are like 0.5 wins above bubble, but I don't think it's like last year where anything close to a negative is going to be in the conversation.
And let's be honest, if it gets that close and they're right on the cut line, I have to imagine. I really do think they'd bring it up like, guys, if they miss that half court shot, we all agree they're not even considered right now, right? Like it's done. Do you really want to put a team in the tournament because they hit a half court shot? I'm winning and losing means everything, but if it's that close, I do think it has to enter the conversation.
Virginia Tech and Cal. I mean, I think Cal's dead, but we still have them on here just by virtue of the lack of opportunities they have remaining. I mean, even if they go 5-0, that would get them to 22 and 8. But I don't think any of those. I guess at Wake Forest would be like a borderline quad one, quad two game, but at Georgia Tech, I think it's quad three. Home against SMU is quad two. Home against Stanford's probably quad three. Home against Pitt might be quad four. So yeah, they're not gonna be able to really improve their resume. Like their WOB would go from like 52nd to probably 52nd if other teams around them are picking up wins. But Virginia Tech still has a chance. At Clemson, already got that win. Really good triple overtime home win over Virginia. We talked about it yesterday. I think the fact that the way that they split actually helped them, even though they did acquire that hideous loss to Florida State. Now at least they have a second really solid quad one win over Clemson. If they go 3-2, they win those two home games against Wake and Boston College, and then any of those road games, I think they've got a pulse, but they're going to need some help. I think 4-1 gets them in, 3-2 gets them close. What say you?
Yeah, totally agree. I think 2 and 3, they're pretty much done. Maybe potentially a huge run in the ACC tournament could be enough, but probably not. I think they need to win one of those road games. But to your point, if they do, all of a sudden you're looking at Clemson and then at one of these other teams. As we just talked earlier about how rare it is. Well, not I guess rare, but not many teams have 2 wins or more against tournament teams on the road. Certainly, we think Miami, UVA, and UNC are going dancing. If that's the case, they have 2 true road wins over tournament teams, and 2 teams probably pretty solidly in the field, and a win over a Virginia team that we're talking about as potentially being on this bracket preview. Throw in another Q1 win at Syracuse. Like, I think there's something there. In a year where we're talking about, you just mentioned Santa Clara and St. Mary's, and it's like, I'm looking at San Diego State, New Mexico. I'm just like, I don't see a win that really moves the needle, like a single win
Yeah.
that moves the needle. You could potentially be talking about three wins that are needle movers. So I definitely think Virginia Tech is not done yet, but they need to pick up a big road win because if they don't, it's just not going to work out.
Yeah, I think if they get one of those road wins, now all of a sudden they're kind of looking like a Missouri or a TCU, but where their bad losses are quad three home losses. They didn't lose at home to, you know, New Orleans. What was Missouri's really bad loss? I don't remember. I know Santa Clara has that terrible loss to Loyola Chicago. So home loss to Florida State, as we talked about yesterday, like that's a team that has come on strong lately. I wonder how much the committee will consider that. That's not your standard home loss to a 80th ranked team in the net. Florida State's been different lately. I think that could help them, but they're going to need a road win to get there. So let's stop share there, and I will figure out how the heck to stop the stream. Hopefully this worked all right. I'll check it out in a minute, and hopefully we'll be good to go with the mock on Thursday. But until then, we've got what is it? Houston, Iowa State tonight, as well as Duke, Syracuse. I'm sure there's some good Southland action. They usually play on Mondays, but until